What's up? Welcome in. Glad to see all of you on this Thursday night. It's the Rebel Report. My name is Michael Borky. Going to be a bit of a shorter one tonight. I've got something that I have to do immediately after this, but I wanted to bring you the opponent preview. I've got a conversation with Jordan Hill, who covers Georgia, upcoming for you as well. And then got to get out of here pretty fast tonight. So we'll do our keys. We will do our opponent preview and more. So glad that you guys are here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that good stuff right here on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Just search Rebel Report and subscribe and leave a rating and a review. And also, this edition is brought to you in part by Toyota of Brookhaven. Check them out online at toyotaofbrookhaven.com. And you don't have to live in the area, although they're right off of Exit 40 in Brookhaven. You don't have to live in the area to have a great car buying experience because Toyota of Brookhaven will take care of you. They'll also give you $1,000 off on me, straight up. Off the top, $1,000 off on me if you just tell them that I sent you on any in-stock new Toyota. Their used inventory is great, awesome in-house financing, and more. Check them out at Toyota of Brookhaven. They will deliver for you. All right, 3 keys to the game, then opponent preview. Free space, number 1. We talked about it earlier in the week, so I'm not going to repeat that. Just the blocking out of the noise. We talked about the 2023 game and how the stuff around the game impacted how at least some of the players prepared and were ready or not ready for the game. And also quite literally blocking out the noise. Trinidad Chambliss in that offense, even though Lane Kiffin said something funny on the teleconference, that Georgia's defense actually communicates more than Ole Miss's offense. And that's a really interesting thing, because that crowd of 90,000 plus is going to be losing their minds when Georgia's on defense, but they actually communicate more, Kiffin said, than Ole Miss offensively does, which, again, that's a very interesting thing, but they've got to be able to find a way to block all that out and focus and play clean and not shell-shocked football. It's okay if you go 3 and out on the opening possession. You can't feel like that's a death blow. They overcame that in the LSU game. Right? They had early offense and defense, really, very early in that game, paired with the penalties, were not sharp, and they settled in and overcame it. You got to be able to do that kind of stuff on Saturday as well. So that's your free space. Just block out the noise and try to play within yourselves and not let the outside stuff impact you. There's your free space. Number 1, I think Trinidad has to be effective at every level. You've got to get all 3 of these things. 2, to me, is not good enough. He's obviously got to be effective throwing the football in the intermediate to long routes. I think that, considering Georgia's defensive line, albeit a talented one, has struggled to this point to get after the quarterback with consistency, he should have time to throw, especially since I think that's Ole Miss offensive line strength anyways, in pass protection, especially with Lacey or whatever running back in there helping as well. But Daquan Wright and those receivers, if Trinidad is given time, will get open. They absolutely will. So he's got to be accurate and deliver the football on the intermediate to long routes, because he did not do that last Saturday, but he was exceptional at it in his first 3 starts. Design runs, I think you're going to get some of those from him, but also the improvisational, escaping pressure, getting first downs with his legs, taking what the defense gives him. He has got to be effective in all of those levels. I don't think Ole Miss can be 1 or even 2-dimensional in this game if they're going to win. You're going to have to get a complete game from your quarterback, and little things like the interception that he threw against LSU, that's got to be pull the ball down, run for a first down, keep moving the chains, that kind of stuff. It's got to be intermediate to deep passing, design runs and being effective there. And also when the play breaks down, or taking what the defense gives you and being effective in improv as well. I don't think you can have just 2 of those things and win the football game. It's got to be all 3. And if they don't get it, they're going to lose. I think they can get it. I think that Ole Miss has an advantage over Georgia in the weapons category. Well, we'll see if they can take advantage of what I think is their advantage. Oversaying that word. I promise I'll stop. Second key, Ole Miss has to keep Georgia off schedule. My biggest concern in this game for Ole Miss, is their inability to stop the run consistently. And I'm afraid that Georgia's going to be able to get 5 yards per carry or 4.5 yards per carry and see a lot of 3rd and 1s and 3rd and 2s and 12 play drives that take up 7 minutes off the clock. I am afraid that Georgia's going to be able to play some ball control. So Ole Miss's front six and also the safeties and run fits as well, because one of Washington State's touchdowns came on a really bad run fit from a safety. This has got to be the best game that they've ever played this season. Anyway, I know defensively they were spectacular a season ago, but this has got to be the best game they've played. They cannot allow Georgia to stay on schedule running the football the way they have other teams at times this year. It has got to be much better, and they have got to control the line of scrimmage, and they have got to force Georgia into 3rd and medium to long, obvious passing downs, because I think that's where you can beat them. If you cannot, then you will lose. And finally, going back to the offense, get Trey Wallace the freaking football. Find ways to get what I think is your most explosive wide receiver the ball, more targets in space. You never want, and you saw it some last year, them to force feed the ball to one guy all game. But he's been too quiet, and he's too explosive and useful to be as quiet as he's been. I know Trinidad's done a good job of distributing the football evenly across the offense, but I think Trey Wallace has got to be involved in this game. And you have to find a way to get him the football. So those are my 3 keys to the game. And I'll read just a few of your messages, and then we'll get to the opponent preview, and then I have got to go. For some reason, the closer we get to this game, the more you're concerned about Ole Miss, mainly on defense, stopping the run. Great minds think alike. Those are your concerns as well. Haven't won there since 96. Also a thing. Although, I mean, how much does history actually matter? Because who is on the team, who's going to be playing for Ole Miss and Georgia that played in this game 2 years ago on the same field? Need to stop the run game, make them pass. Thanks for the Shoresy recommendation. Love the humor type, different than anything I've watched as far as the flow and how they communicate. Wife hates it, but I was entertained. The music drives me crazy, though. Gosh, the hockey scenes and the music is like, it's way too intense. And the club scenes are also weird, too. It's like, I don't know what the point of those are. But, man, the humor gets me. My goodness, they are so funny. If you guys haven't seen the show Shoresy, it's about a washed-up Canadian hockey pro that's the best player on like a minor league team in a small town. And, man, they are so funny. Just forgive my language, earmuffs, everybody. The shit talking is just so funny. And, yeah, it may not be for the wives, but I think you guys would really like it. Would be surprised if either team gets blown out, but also Ole Miss hasn't played in a truly hostile road environment. Yeah, I think it's a 2-outcome game. I think it's going to be close either way. If Georgia scores a touchdown first, the game is over. Is that a hot take? Yes, it is. Absolutely it is. But you don't want to get down early because Georgia is going to be able to death march, I believe. Jelly Roll guest picker. Yeah, I saw that. Thoughts on James Franklin being on College Game Day? Is he going to be on College Game Day? Interesting. I don't particularly like him, though, so I'm not all that interested in it. Plus, never mind. That's too personal. Anyway, I won't be able to watch College Game Day on Saturday. Watched an assessment of Trinidad's Washington State performance. He just failed to pull the trigger on wide open throws, like major regression. Was it a regression or was it a bad day? We'll find out Saturday. I have no idea where the hangout spot is for the Ole Miss fans in the game. I wish I could tell you. Hopefully somebody in the chat can help you out because I have no idea where anybody's going. I will not be there. Better communication on defense is a key, and not blowing assignments was an issue on Saturday. Just have the bad feeling Georgia's due for a We're the Death Machine game where they just impose their will at home and sit on Ole Miss and win comfortably. They haven't really been able to do that much this season, with the exception of the Death March drive against Auburn. Whole game comes down to Ole Miss's defense. Get them off the field consistently, and they'll be fine. Would like to see Perkins. I'd like to see Ole Miss draw up some blitzes with Perkins. Are Hugh Freeze and Billy Napier employed on Monday? Napier, no. Hugh, yes. But end of the season, neither. Whenever Billy gets fired, get prepared. Yeah, but you hope that Keith Carter in particular is better prepared. Not that anything that happened in 2022 was his fault at all. It wasn't, but you would hope that everybody involved has learned from that. Just watch Brooks Austin. He seems very concerned about Lacey's legs and Harris on the other side. He's a good watch. He's a and he's getting even better because he's been doing the film stuff for a while. But yeah, he's a good watch and really informative and just a good media personality. I think for whatever it's worth. Ole Miss has been down early in basically every game. Don't think that's a massive issue unless it turns to 2 scores. Yeah, I'm not worried yet about the mental makeup of the team unless they show something they haven't really shown yet. And yes, that includes Washington State. The penalties cannot happen, period. They're infuriating. Yeah, you can't have double-digit penalties. Can't have it. How much do you think Saturday could affect the quarterback controversy, quote unquote, if any? If Trinidad plays really, really poorly, yeah. But I mean, if he plays fine to good, well, then there's no issue. But if he plays like truly bad, then yeah, the conversation around that changes for sure. Almost doing away with their white, red away jerseys is a tragedy. Yeah, I don't necessarily like the ones they'll be wearing Saturday, but Lane will likely be up to 10 million, especially if they make the playoff. My friend, I think you can add a couple more millions to that after seeing the Signetti deal today. But anyway, all right, here this is now, the Georgia opponent preview from the Bulldogs' perspective. Lane was asked about using both quarterbacks on Rep Talk. He said maybe it will happen. I would not expect. I mean, maybe it does, but I would not expect Lane Kiffin to reveal strategy on the coach's show one way or another. But again, maybe they do. That's not something that he's done, and he's had quality backups and quarterbacks in competition and stuff like that, and it's just not really ever been a thing that he's done. So this would be an outlier first, but who knows? Maybe they got some tricks up their sleeve. Wouldn't be the first time that things got weird around here. Maybe they do. All right, I had to cut it down a little bit, but here is an opponent preview from the Bulldogs' perspective from Jordan Hill from 24/7. He covers Georgia, and I'll see you on the other side. How would you grade what Georgia offensively has been so far this season? At times, it looks brilliant, like in Knoxville, and other times, like in the first half against Auburn, it looks rough and frustrating, and then they go on a 9-minute drive to seal the game at the end. So what is this Georgia offense?
And if I were to give it a grade, I'd probably give it a B-, though I really do think a lot of what's been the issue, at least in that Auburn game, was what we were just talking about, that offensive line being banged up. They had Bo Hewley starting at left tackle at the beginning of that game, and all credit to Keldrick Falk at Auburn. I mean, he gave Bo more than he could handle, which is a big reason why Bo wound up coming in this game. And, yeah, this offense to this point in the season, Tennessee game, I thought they played really, really well, which was huge because Georgia fell behind 21-7, had to have a response just to keep up, and they wound up getting what they needed. Alabama, just too stagnant, just too many drives that kind of faded and went to the wayside. But the thing that you kind of have to keep in mind with this Georgia team, for whatever reason, Gunnar Stockton talked about this on Monday. It's a group that just doesn't quit, and I thought that Auburn game was a great example. Nearly going down 17-0, they forced a fumble on the goal line, but then the offense has to start at the 1, and slowly but surely they make their way down the field. And then you mentioned, I mean, maybe the perfect example of what this offense is was that drive at the very end of the game against Auburn. 8 minutes and 45 seconds. That was tied for the longest possession in Georgia program history as far as amount of time. Converting, I think, 4 third downs, a 4th down along the way, and before that drive, Georgia had converted 1 third down all afternoon. So for whatever reason, it's It's an offense that seems to find what it needs when it absolutely has to need it, when it absolutely has to get it. I know that's not exactly what Kirby Smart and Mike Bobo have in mind, but you do have to give them credit for that. When they've had their back against the wall, when there's been possessions that could be make or break, somehow, some way, they find a way to make the plays, to extend the drives, and ultimately get the points they got to have.
One more on the offense. What would you say if you said they had a weakness that Ole Miss could try to exploit offensively? What would you say that weakness is?
I think the biggest thing right now is struggling to create explosive plays, especially in the passing game. A lot of what they've done to this point has been quick throws, has been screens. You saw a lot of screens in that game against Auburn, and, credit to Georgia. They timed up some of those very well. I mean, there was a 3rd and 7 to Zachariah Branch in the fourth quarter that they wound up hitting and moving the chains. But I think I know I can speak for myself and say that I thought this offense would be a little bit more explosive downfield, what they added to this receiver room and some of the veterans they got back. Now, that's not to say they haven't been explosive at all. Great example, they hit Noah Thomas for a 30-yard pass in the third quarter of that game against Auburn, and then they wound up scoring their first touchdown of the day the next play on a short run from Chauncey Bowens. But that would be what I would look at is, trying to force Georgia into situations where they got to throw it down the field. And it's really as simple as trying to stop this Georgia run and especially push Georgia behind the chains on first down, second down. Georgia, it's been very hit or miss on third down this year. And, pretty simple to say, the longer the third down, the harder it is to convert. And they ended up 2 of 8 against Alabama on third down, and I mentioned how they struggled on third down against Auburn. I think they started 0 of 6 on third down in that game last week. So if you put Gunnar Stockton in positions where he has no choice but to throw, it could really play out in Ole Miss's favor. And I say that, and Tennessee did that back in week 3, and, give Gunnar credit. He made a huge throw to hit London Humphreys for a touchdown. But that would be my advice on the Ole Miss front. They've got to really stop those early downs, which means the Rebels playing better against the run. I really do think that Georgia's going to try to really rely on its ground game and try to get Chauncey Bowens, Nate Frazier, those backs going. The better job Ole Miss does of stopping that, I think the better Ole Miss's chances of winning this game will be.
On the flip side, because you look at recruiting rankings and what they've just put on the field and put in the NFL, that Georgia has a very talented defense, NFL guys all over the field, but not productive in the quote-unquote explosive play department, not at the bottom or near the bottom of the SEC in sacks and tackles for loss and pressures. Why are they there?
Yeah, that is the million-dollar question, and that's something that, we've kind of been following, really throughout this season. I mean, even when they played Marshall and Austin Peay in the first couple of weeks, it wasn't like they racked up a bunch of sacks. And, why exactly they haven't broken through, especially with bringing the pressure, it's hard to say because I think that they've done a pretty good job going into the season with the talent they've gotten. And I think that you look to, especially this defensive line, a lot of talented guys, but it was guys they were counting on to kind of take that next step. I mean, with what they lost to the NFL, with Michael Williams, with Ty Ingram Dawkins, with Warren Brinson, some older defensive linemen, all of whom pretty good at rushing the passer and, making plays in the backfield. And for whatever reason, it's just not really, the light really hadn't come on for some of the guys they've looked at and counted on. Christian Miller's the nose tackle, and he's done a pretty good job, but statistically hasn't really done a ton. Jordan Hall has flashed, especially late in games. For whatever reason, he's been able to really turn it on. Some good plays here and there from Joseph Jonah-Ajayi. Elijah Griffin, who's a true freshman, has flashed, but no one's really dominated. And I think, the position where you can really see, the losses to the NFL, and especially, just with how the portal works today, that, guys that move on who would have had bigger roles, outside linebacker, Quintavious Johnson's just a sophomore, and I think in the last couple of weeks he's looked better as far as pressuring the quarterback, but he still hasn't gotten home. Compare that to a guy like Damon Wilson, who was at Georgia last year, and I think he might lead the nation in pressures. I know he had a fantastic game for Missouri against Alabama last week. That was a really big loss for Georgia in the portal. There's talent there, but they, for whatever reason, have not been able to be consistent. And I know one thing, and just what I've watched of Trinidad Chambliss, you've got to make him uncomfortable. You've got to make him force throws and make mistakes. If he has all day on Saturday, that does not bode well for the Bulldogs.
So is that? I'll ask you the same question on the flip side. We got about a minute and a half left here. What would be? Is that their biggest weakness that they can exploit? Is that they're not able to get after the passer?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that combined with what's been at times a shaky secondary, I think that's what Ole Miss has got to look to exploit. It's got to create explosive plays down the field with Trinidad, and I think even too, taking advantage of his legs and taking advantage of his ability not only to extend plays, but maybe run some design runs, take advantage of what he's able to do. Traditionally, when you look at Georgia's defenses and the times they've had issues with quarterbacks, it's been guys that are dual threats. It's guys who can keep those plays alive, who continue to look downfield, and if they got to tuck it and run, they can tuck it and run. So, either allowing Trinidad to run or also extending plays and testing a secondary that has been hit or miss this year. Tennessee really got the upper hand on them. Alabama, I thought they settled in, played really well in the second half, and had a really good game against Auburn on Saturday, although I thought Jackson Arnold looked pretty flustered in the second half, so that made things easier. So, Trinidad Chambliss, to me, when you look at Ole Miss, I think he's, as simple as it is to say, he's the key to this game. How he plays, how he handles his first career road start for the Rebels, it's going to go a long way in Georgia being able to win this thing, or the Bulldogs really sweating this thing well into.
Really good stuff from him there. Don't forget the podcast brought to you in part by Advantage Business Systems. If you're a Mississippi business and you need office technology, absms.com is the website. Advantage Business Systems for all of your Mississippi office technology needs. And Priority One Bank, 16 locations here in Mississippi, local loan servicing and decision-making, the best online banking platform out there. Priority One Bank makes you their priority. I appreciate you guys being here. We will do something live after the game. It may be a little bit later, not like immediately after the game, but just have the notifications on, and we'll go live and we'll talk about whatever happens on Saturday. I got to run. I hate to do it. I got to run, though. Really appreciate you guys, and I'll see you after the game.